I always say in September, every election cycle, I will like get frantic phone calls from like people in all parts of my life. And I will always say to them, like, this is like election cycles are one way, like one vehicle through which we get to change people's hearts and minds. And if you feel really nervous, perhaps you should go out and knock some doors. They'll make you feel better. It really will. I promise it will. It'll suck for like the first like half hour, and then it'll feel better.
We're rolling. We're rolling.
Calling out tap people. This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.
Well,
do you want to say hi to everyone now?
okay.
Hello.
Hi, I just want to say hi.
Hey, Melody.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm Melody.
You're Melody. I'm Aisha.
Tell her that you're a constituent.
I'm a constituent, and I'm going to be voting for you.
Thank you.
I'm so excited. My brother and his partner have your campaign thing on their refrigerator, too, so I just saw your face today.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah, so I won't take up any more time.
Okay, great. Excellent.
But we'll talk later. I just want to say hi. And hi, John, too.
Hi.
As well.
I have a good Lisa Goodman soundbite for this.
I'm ready.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
Oh, you're practicing your drops, John?
Yeah.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
I don't know why her voice is so deep, though. I didn't do that on purpose. Okay. Now we can start. This is the.
Do you have any Lisa Bender drops that you're going to play?
I don't have any Lisa Bender drops. I have mostly Lisa Goodman drops. That's what I have.
All right.
Can we start, Jason?
I suppose.
Yeah, well,
that's fine.
Yes. Will you just start with me by like telling me a little about like how long? How long are we gonna?
Oh,
how long are we gonna be?
Well,
Like,
Jason and I took.
Maybe we can start with some logistics.
Yeah, I mean, usually about an hour. If you have do you have a time you got to go? No.
I mean, like I have to sleep at some point. But,
Yeah. Well, we usually go way too long. So if you have to go at some point, I can like cut that out, and so you don't look like a terrible person for abandoning us. But also, we might just go like 80 minutes. We went 90 minutes with John O'Cowgill last night.
Really?
It's Cogill.
Cogill, yeah. And he
Aren't you guys buds?
me and Jono?
Yeah.
We get along, yeah. I mean, yeah. But he looks so tired at the end. I felt bad. I feel bad for all the candidates who come on because it goes so long, and what candidates have a hard time. But anyway, we're going to start. This is why it goes so long. We're going to start the show. This is the Wedge Live podcast. I'm your host, John Edwards. My co-host is Jason Garcia, and joining us as our guest is Ward 10 candidate for City Council in Minneapolis, Aisha Chughtai. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, how did you spend your day campaigning today? Let's start with that.
Today, every day I spend campaigning for the most part. I am actually in the process of wrapping up my job and taking leave from it. Later this week, I work at SEIU, Minnesota State Council, doing political and legislative work there. And I have to go on leave because I have to focus on campaigning more. And I am wrapping that up. So today was actually a big, do your job, the one that pays for health insurance day.
It's easy to forget that candidates, a lot of them have jobs while they're doing this big project running for office. I don't know how people do it.
Well, I feel like even a lot of people I've worked for have been able to do consult, or do something that allows for a lot of flexibility in their days. And that has not been my experience, right? My job is a pretty demanding one. And that just never really let up. And then I was like, oh, I can't, this is not sustainable. So I got to take some time off.
Jason, can we go to you for the legal update? Do we know what the status of the Yes for Minneapolis petition is at all? Do you have an update there? I feel like it's minute by minute things are changing. Do you know?
I do not have the latest news. No,
I don't think we have a ruling, right?
No.
Okay.
And
by the time this airs, it's going to be old news. We like to do breaking news on the podcast, so by the time it airs, it's old news.
Yes.
We still have 78 more minutes to go. So
yeah, things could change. So, are you familiar with this Nextdoor post where this guy said?
We're gonna start at that.
Yes.
Yes, I am familiar with the Nextdoor.
Okay.
Post.
Well, he was talking big on Nextdoor. He said you had no answers for his questions. It seemed far-fetched. Say what you want about disagreeing with people on issues. I assume you're a candidate for office. You have answers. And he seems like the kind of guy who would come on a little strong, and you might have to walk away at a certain point. But what is the real story behind that? Did you actually not have any answers? Or was he just a big asshole?
I actually don't think I want to talk about this man specifically, but I do want to talk about I think talking about this interaction actually deeply minimizes the type of experiences that I have with people at the doors, and it minimizes the type of racism and misogyny and deeply ageist things that I experience specifically from men as a part of running for office, right? And that Nextdoor post is it's a pretty interesting characterization of that experience. I would say that I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I was like, I've worked for a lot of candidates. I've knocked on a lot of doors. I used to work for Ilhan Omar. I used to knock on doors for her. Right. And that's somebody who people have really violent reactions to. And things can get really hostile and really out of control very quickly. So I don't feel like I'm a stranger to being able to navigate really difficult and at times unsafe and violent situations like that. But I do feel like I have never experienced such a relentless and consistent, mistreatment, by people at the doors, largely men, largely white men, who, it starts with one question and then suddenly it's been 20 minutes and I'm someone's inches from my face screaming at me and telling me that I have no business running for office, that I'm stupid, that asking I do know that this isn't a student body president race, right? But it's not cute. It's just gross. I think this is one of the first people that wrote about it on Nextdoor in this way, but certainly those experiences still happen, will continue to happen. And I'm not the only person that they happen to probably, and I mean, certainly we get asked by people all the time, what is going to happen when something really terrible happens to me? What's going to happen? Am I going to get priced out of my neighborhood because there's rent control and now nobody wants to build anything? And all these weird lies that people have been sold about what building for a police-free future or rent control can do to their communities. But a lot of times we're able to work through those fears and sometimes we aren't able to. And I guess I just wish this person some peace. So
you say it's not new to you coming into this campaign. It's not new, but is it does it feel different as the candidate? Those interactions?
I think yes, for sure. And I think there's also just a heightened there's like it's just people are really angry at city government. I think this is like one of the first times people is in the last year and a half have like have gotten to know what a city council can and can't do. And as a result, it like makes people just have like don't have like a lot of unplaced anger, or anger they haven't worked through. And like I am not a vessel for other people's anger. But certainly like it gets placed that way a lot of the times. And I think it's just like the type of world and society we live in, right? Like we devalue the worth of, the time and energy of women of color specifically. And then we, expect them to do like undying amounts of like labor for us, and then when we don't receive that, like we lash out. And like this is an interesting way of experiencing that. I think it's certainly different when someone's talking about you and not talking about someone you like care about or love. But it's I don't know. I think it's hard for everybody who experiences this. I think it's especially hard for people who experience this, who have this set of identities and lived experiences.
Well, I apologize for starting the show this way. I thought we were just going to make fun of this guy, but
I don't want to do that. Actually,
Jason, why didn't you keep me in line, keep me from doing this? You're the one who posted this screenshot in the document here, so I blame Jason. Really,
yeah,
it's really quite okay. It's really okay.
Well, one that actually it ties in with something that has been kind of on my mind the past few days. Having, gone through as an adult the events of 9/11 and seeing, the continuing memorials and remembrances and things like that. One of the things that I remember the most from that time period was how there was this huge conservative kind of falling in line going on in the country. And I feel like last year, following the MPD's murder of George Floyd, that has started to happen in Minneapolis. Like there's this very clear line of people who, maybe considered themselves liberals, maybe, thought of themselves as moderates, or maybe still do think of themselves as moderates and centrists, who are shifting very far to the right and, willing to give up all sorts of liberties and safety, or liberties and rights in the name of safety. And I think that it's really brave of you as a brown Muslim woman to kind of step into this and say, yes, I am willing to lead here. So first off, I just wanted to say I appreciate that. And, I'm sorry that you had this experience. But also, having read that post, I think, he identifies himself as a landlord. So he's clearly not going into this with any intent of learning or trying to ask questions in a way to actually come to an agreement. It seems very clear that, there wasn't going to be an answer that he was satisfied with. And he's, just characterizing you as not being able to answer a question when he probably just didn't like the answer.
It was clear from the post. He's describing someone who was wilting in the face of his like barrage. And like, that's not a realistic portrayal of what that interaction was. So it was obvious to me reading that he was full of it. But well, let's talk about some of the concerns people have. This is our crime-themed election year. People are scared. There's a lot of misinformation out there, I think, coming from the mayor's pack and the mayor himself and a bunch of city council candidates about what happens to the Minneapolis Police Department. Will we have armed law enforcement? Assuming that the Yes for Minneapolis Public Safety Department petition passes, or the charter amendment passes. So, your vision for public safety, is armed law enforcement a part of that in the near future, the medium future, long term? What does it look like? How do you assuage those fears?
Yeah, I like there is not a I think despite the attempts of, like you said, right, the mayor's pack and the mayor himself, um, there is not a public safety package, right, or like a set of decision making around the future of policing that includes the complete elimination of armed response in our city. And I think, like in the long term, certainly we want to be building systems that allow for um, more like that allow for us to catch and hold people's very complicated needs around public safety, right? Very like all of the different reasons and all of the very like at times really difficult and complicated reasons that a person calls 911 for help. Um, to like actually and adequately respond to their need. And right now, in the like short term, right, keeping in mind who knows what's going to happen with even this ballot question, like showing up in front of voters this year, but um, going down the path of like, let's say this ballot question 2 passes. We're talking about the expansion of our scope of public safety and policing, right? To consolidate how we react to crises, the types of funding that different types of response receive, all into one department, and then making sure that that department includes some like armed law enforcement officers, but an adequate amount of other public safety responders and frontline responders that actually do the work of public safety, that actually do the work of helping people through really tough situations, like crisis counselors and addiction service workers and housing caseworkers and, like mental health workers and stuff like that, that make up like a large, uh, uh, of like a large number of 911 calls.
So
And yeah,
how are people? Because Ward 10 is a big, diverse ward, stretching from Whittier all the way to neighborhoods that are demographically very similar to conservative Ward 13. So it's ideologically diverse. How are people responding to uh, your message in the southwestern portion of the ward? Like,
yeah,
it is it working? Because I am so nervous about this election year. I worry that people will buy into the fear, and this opportunity is going to pass us by, and we're going to send the wrong message with who we vote for, what we vote for on the ballot this year.
I always say in September, every election cycle, I will like get frantic phone calls from like people in all parts of my life. And I will always say to them, like, this is like election cycles are a one way, like one vehicle through which we get to change people's hearts and minds. And if you feel really nervous, perhaps you should go out and knock some doors. It'll make you feel better. It really will. I promise it will. It'll suck for like the first like half hour, and then it'll feel better. But to like all that is to say, right? Talking to people in East Harriet is not that different from talking to people in the Wedge or talking to people in Whittier, right? And I feel like I have conversations with, like a third generation homeowner every day who's like, man, I like really like this has never been a problem for me in my life, but I really want to be a better neighbor. I really care about not being a shitty person, and like as a result, like help me get there on this issue, right? And that's what most conversations are about. And like most people who have frustrations with like our city government or whatever, like their frustrations are less about disagreement on decisions or disagreement on ideology, and they're more about like frustration on process, right? And like I hear about that south of Lake Street more than anything else. It's like I want to be heard. I want to like have like I want my like email responded to on time. I like want you to show up consistently. And when you show up, I want you to like be present and engage with me being upset with you. And like, we started this episode talking about like the limits to that, right? Like certainly like there is a healthy way for us to be able to like meaningfully engage with disagreement. And I think that's been like, for me, the most fruitful part of having conversations with people is like they're that we're like able to like land on, yeah, like I want you to show up and be more present and like, sure, help me get there on rent control and on ballot question 2, but like, I mostly care that you're going to keep showing up.
So what are the campaign metrics? Tell me how much money you've raised, how many volunteers you got, doors knocked, anything that you're tracking that you're proud of, or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love and adore my campaign. We are every day we are out organizing, out raising, and outworking all of our opponents. I am really proud to have consistently outraised everyone else. You know, like I've been really, I like have raised over $110,000 now. I think 115 almost, and it's just like not something people expected from me. It's something I feel really, really proud of. And, you know, like we have a team of, like a growing field team, almost 5 people on it right now. We are knocking doors and like talking to voters almost every single day. Have had thousands of conversations, on the phones and at the doors, continue to like persuade people and move them, if not earn their second choice support. We are in front of renters and people who live in multi-unit housing all of the time. We've built the largest coalition in this race between like movement organizations, member-led organizations, labor unions, DFL caucuses, and elected officials, and then with neighborhood leaders in every neighborhood in Ward 10.
Jason, I'm going to throw you under the bus. You have at the top of my notes here, happy belated birthday. Is that what kind of journalist you were going to wish her a happy birthday? Because it was actually my birthday recently. I think it was maybe more recently my birthday, possibly. And you didn't.
When was your birthday?
It was the 10th. When was your birthday?
The 4th.
Okay, well, Jason, you missed my birthday, and you're over here doing
I guess
journalism.
Both of our birthdays.
Whoa! Don't ever accuse me of doing journalism.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is my way of throwing it to you, Jason, for your series of questions here. So.
Oh, that was a great transition, John.
It wasn't awkward at all.
Well, happy belated birthday to both of you.
Thank you.
And, hopefully, John, your next birthday will be as successful of a fundraiser as Aisha's was.
Yeah, I hope so.
So, one of the things that has come out very recently, was the article regarding the MPD's use of quote unquote less lethal munitions against a citizen from an unmarked van who, returned fire and then was beaten severely after he had given himself up. And when we talk about community safety or public safety, one of the things I think that makes people feel less safe is kind of coming to this understanding that maybe the systems that we have in place aren't necessarily working for everyone. I hope that people are feeling that. And when you are out talking to people, is this something that people bring up? Like, do they talk about specific things like that and ask you, what will you do that will be different? or do you find that it's still more just like general, like, the police are abusing people constantly, or the police just need more help, they need more resources? Like, what are you hearing from your hopefully constituents?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of all of those things. I think that a portion of it is kind of going back to some of your points, right? Like it is um, the successful talking points of the right in our city that like have moved people from a place of like, God, this is really not okay, and we have to invest in something different, to yeah, like some people dying and being mistreated is a fair price to pay for my illusion of safety. And like there, for every person who feels that way, there are 10 who don't. And like I think one of the better things to come out of this election cycle is more frank conversations between people in community about the types of experiences they've had with police, and the ways in which their needs haven't been met. Like every once in a while I'll hear from somebody, well, this like I like lost my wallet and my phone, and then the police called me and they were like, oh, we have it here for you, come pick it up. And that was an excellent experience. But lots and lots of people like describing break-ins, describing muggings, describing carjackings, and other forms of like domestic violence situations, poor treatment by their landlord, all types of sexual violence where someone who wanted to have some type of trust in the system to help them called the police, called 911, tried to get help, and was met with either like outward hostility or just negligence and like not having like adequate response to their needs. And then I like to always ask, well, how did you get through? Like what happened in your life? Who showed up for you that you like are still here, right? And like then they'll describe to me like their neighbors, helping them find their car, or places like the Aurora Center, like helping them with the months and months of care that people need following something traumatic like that happening in their life. And, like networks of friends, medical professionals and stuff like that who actually do show up for them. And that is why they're there. And I think there's something about that that's really powerful. And that really also helps us build for what are we going to replace the system with, and what are we building for? Because in those stories are people's experiences of how things did go right. And yeah, it's a combination of all of things.
I think it's hard. Can I take it from
John.
you, Jason, for a moment? I think it's hard for people to imagine what comes next because it doesn't exist. We don't have a Department of Public Safety. We don't know what will fill it, though we kind of know some basics, the things that exist in the health department currently, the Office of Violence Prevention, things like that, things that can grow into the future incrementally. But what it's easy for me to imagine right now is all the ways that MPD is failing, even if you're not an abolish the police adherent. MPD is clearly failing and disintegrating all on its own. It hasn't been dismantled in any way. It's been provided with money to do the job. There was a Reuters story out today showing that they're engaging in a work slowdown intentionally, in addition to all the cops who have just decided to quit. And whether that's because their job has become extremely hard, which I'll grant, it's their fault for losing all legitimacy in the eyes of so many people.
Actually, can I just quick interrupt you for a second though? Yeah. There's nothing that really like frustrates me more than hearing how hard the job has gotten. Right. Because like I spend my days actually like organizing home care workers and like security officers and frontline education workers who literally make less than $15 an hour and work 80, 100 hours a week that is not fully compensated.
Right.
And like I've had like professionals talk to me about like their students literally like throwing things at them.
Right.
I've had like home care workers tell me like all kinds of stories about like how they were treated by their clients who they love and care for every day. And they don't suddenly like wake up one day and decide like, oh, I'm just not going to do my job anymore. Like poor me, I just get treated so poorly in my workplace. They show up to work every day. They keep going. And why is that? It's like, why do we expect them to keep doing that? Again, because they're largely women of color who do these jobs. And so like, I just actually think that at some point we have to put our foot down on this whole, like, my job's gotten really hard thing. Because it's hard for me to have like a lot of, like, you know, it's just like all of us all have really hard jobs. Most working class people have really, really hard jobs, and we don't have the security of a union. We don't have the security of like a 6-figure salary at times, or at least like being very well compensated. And we don't have the security of a pension to like, you know, care for us through all of that. So I'm just gonna put that out there.
And Jason will attest. That is just me playing the white moderate to appeal to far southwest Ward 10.
Love
Right,
that.
Jason? I'm painting the rosiest possible view of what is happening and saying even under that perspective, it is their fault, the loss of legitimacy. Even the rosiest view of what's going on here. But back to you, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that has been sort of underplayed as a story and a narrative coming up to this election is how clear and obvious it is where the blame falls. You know, the blame clearly falls, you know, right in front of MPD. It falls right in front of Chief Rondo as the person who is in charge of MPD, and it falls right at the feet of Jacob Fry, who has, you know, trumpeted very loudly that he is the only person in charge of MPD. And now he will, you know, try as hard as he can to wiggle away from that. But I think, you know, with the Reuters story that came out today, the earlier reports about police abuses, the videos we've all seen, it is very appalling that so many people buy into this lie that somehow things have gotten, you know, to the point where MPD has no other choice but to curl up and hide because they've lost all their resources. And, you know, the people that they've lost are their, you know, quote unquote brothers, their fellow union members. And, you know, I think that shows you what sort of solidarity they have. And it's just appalling to see how many people, for their own comfort, will stay, you know, attached at the hip with the police. And clearly for Mayor Fry, this is a political position and a political angle. You know, have you, as a candidate, had an opportunity to address any of this with him as the mayor, or before you were a candidate, even as an activist? Have you, you know, been able to talk to him and just say, like, what is going on here?
No, no. I mean, I think that's like a part of the frustration that a lot of Minneapolis residents have is I've like heard a lot of stories and seen folks try to like have conversations with him, and it just isn't very successful. It's very,
Yeah. So with that in mind, like, if this passes, you know, ballot question 2 is on the ballot and passes, and your constituency, you know, is looking to you for reassurance about what that means, or about, you know, where we go in the future, like, what sort of strategies and tactics do you have lined up to help discuss those things should you win the Ward 10 seat?
yeah. I think there are the pieces we talked about earlier around like what an alternative response can look like, but I think something And let me clarify. Are you asking about like tactics to engage with people or like tactics for what we're going to do to replace him with?
Yeah, the engaging with your
Oh, I love
constituents, because I'm sure that they're gonna, that's going to be the
that.
next phase of this. Is everyone is going to want to do massive engagement to find out what we
Mhm.
do next.
Oh, that's so exciting. Yeah. I I think there are I that would that's like that's the work, right? That's the work worth doing. That's so cool. Um I want us to do a lot of really important and meaningful community engagement work, and take the lessons we've learned from um, the like in like the I don't want to say like inadequate, but like in ways where like the gaps of our city engagement process so far, and then apply like what we know as organizers, and people who do work in community to processes like that, right? So it's like, how are we um, like taking some of those deep canvassing conversations we've had with people over the course of this last year, and then making more meaning of those, like, and inviting people to share like their experiences both of like the failures of our current system to help us like guide and build a different one, and then the successes of alternative solutions and like community care and things like that they've received through, I think that looks like meaningful engagement looks like meetings that happen on different days of week and times of day, that happen in like trusted community spaces. So like neighborhood centers, schools that people like bring their kids to, places like that, like just outside in parks and stuff, that are in multiple languages and include, simultaneous translation to make sure that like the spirit of what people are trying to say is fully captured. That include, like meaningful questions that actually get people thinking instead of yes, no questions. That engage people's different senses, like things that allow people to use their hands, things that allow people to draw and stuff like that are like lead to more fruitful results. And then feeding people and like having their like core needs met, having childcare, things that um, allow for people to dig into those conversations. And then ultimately, like people are going to share with us the the types of stories we need to hear when they feel safe and when they feel like they're what they're going to share is going to matter. So like demonstration of trust, I think, is also a really important part of that.
Jason, can I talk about strong mayor now?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
I've been waiting all day to talk about strong mayor.
Oh, I know.
So in addition
You wait
to
every day to talk about strong mayor.
yeah, I talk about it every day. It's pissing me off. So in addition to the public safety charter amendments, the Charter Commission has given us this year the what I call a strong mayor charter amendment, but I think that maybe it flatters the mayor too much. Maybe it's the mayoral power grab charter amendment. Maybe that's a better way to put it. So right now we have a system where the mayor is in charge of the police, but the other departments' policy control is given to the city council. I don't know if a lot of people know that. Maybe a quick question for you is, when you're talking to voters, do they understand that the mayor is in charge of the police? I always wonder this, but you talk to a lot of people. Do they understand this?
No,
No. So that's
no, like it's like the first half of the conversation. Like a lot of times, it's just like people are like, oh, like the city council defunded the police. I'm like, they're making it. They're not working with the chief, and it's just gotta like step back sometimes. You're like, oh, like this is an intentional misinformation campaign, and it serves like support for ballot question one, and like that's why people like have this type of reaction.
yeah, and it's so hard to overcome that because it's local news coverage is reinforcing the mayor's and his PAC's campaign message. It's like people will think you're lying to them if only you are telling them this, and they're hearing it from all sides, uh, the wrong information. Jason, I'm getting so upset just talking about it right here. I forgot what my
I can tell.
question was going to be. What kind of system do you want to serve in if you're elected? Do you support retaining the current system? And obviously you support transitioning to council control over public safety, I would assume. What about the strong mayor thing? How do you feel?
On the public safety thing real quick, I think that about question 2, like right now, move some of that control over to the council, but in the long term, I support community control of police. Like a separate body, like an elected commission that solely deals with police. Kind of like we have an independent parks board, we have an independent school board, we have an independent board of estimate and taxation, kind of like that. So like just putting that out there, we don't have to discuss it in more detail right now. But like, I think you're asking me how I'm going to vote on ballot question 1, and I like don't support it.
Okay, we could leave it there. I think we don't have to waste a lot of time. But
yeah, I like agree with everything you've said about it.
Okay,
you know? I think we're on the same page.
That's good. I would like to go back to, I think it's called CPAC, right? That's what we were referring to before.
Civilian Police Accountability Commission.
So I signed the petition for that yesterday at Open Streets, but one of the conversations I had with a volunteer was about my skepticism of creating another obscure elected body in Minneapolis. Like we have the BET, we have the park board, and we won't get into whether those things should exist, but I don't know if creating another elected body for that makes it better. If I don't know that we end up with better people in control necessarily. You could easily elect a bunch of Meg Forneys and Carol Beckers to this CPAC thing. Why not just leave it in the hands of the city council?
I mean, I think you can certainly say the same thing about like our park board and our school board right now, but there's a reason why like we have the best parks in the country. There's a reason why like the Chicago Teachers Union, which is like one of the strongest labor unions in this country, fights tooth and nail every day with Lori Lightfoot for an independent school board, right? Like it's because democratic control is actually a good thing. It's like when people have one elected body it's like having an independently elected school board has been like one of the best things to happen in like the education movement in Minneapolis, right? It certainly isn't perfect. School board members are certainly underpaid, and it comes with its whole set of new problems. But like democratic control, ultimately, and autonomy for communities, is like what we believe in and what we fight for, and it like you could say make the same argument for why we need like mayoral control of everything, right? Like why go to 13 people when you could just go to one? Like this obscure body, the city council, why do we even need them? And I don't know. I think that like right now, a large part of our problem with policing is that like the mayor has sole control of it, is that like, and like, it's like, yeah, I think it's a good thing to have more control over something. I think it's a good thing when that's accountable directly to community.
Okay. I appreciate that. I think that was a better answer than the volunteer gave me, because I can see both sides. And I think John Cogill made a defense of the park board that sounded a little bit like that with the things that you just said. Like, it's good to have that kind of adversarial park board versus the rest of the city relationship protecting their turf kind of thing. So I'm keeping an open mind on that. Jason, do you have a next thing?
Wow. I'm still like kind of processing that. That was a really thoughtful answer. So I guess the next thing that, I am interested in, and in 2021, it feels sort of like old news, but talking about the 2040 plan and housing, Minneapolis is still clearly in a housing crisis, or more accurately, a crisis of affordable housing. Getting the supply that we have to the people who need it. So, this is had the MPD not killed George Floyd last summer, I'm sure that this would be the issue that everyone was talking about.
Oh, triplexes.
How terrible.
We'd be fighting about triplexes right now, for sure.
So, this will, I think, be another important issue for you should you become the Ward 10 City Council person. How do you feel about the 2040 plan and how it's been implemented, and what would you do, going forward to help the city as a whole manage this housing crisis?
Yeah. I feel like the most extensive question I ever get asked by people about the 2040 plan is like, would you have voted for it? And I'm like, yeah, I would have voted for it. And then like a lot of like nasty things about our council member because people are mean. And like I believe that housing is a human right. I'm a person who's experienced housing insecurity my whole life. I feel like Jason, you and I have connected about this a lot in the past of, we live in Whittier is a 90% renter neighborhood. Ward 10 is an 80% renter community. We absolutely are struggling with this issue while we are also struggling with public safety. And I think sometimes we forget in this election cycle that the vast majority of the conversations I have with people are actually about their rent and the relationship they have to their landlord. And that it's like a material thing that's happening in people's lives. And the thing we resonate and connect with one another on most of the time is about the fact that I'm the only renter that's running in this race, and that it really matters that the person making decisions for a community that every day is struggling with this issue also deals with those things, right? And when it's I think it's a really exciting thing that we're gonna get to vote on figuring out rent control through the council this year. But I think that we are we live in a housing system that is profit driven. It is something, and a part of that is also living in a community where we have so many people who are coming in, so many people who already live here. Everybody needs housing. We need to build more of it. And then what do we do then to protect people within the system so that people aren't displaced, so that people can continue to live here, so that poor and working class people actually have a shot at staying in our neighborhoods. And that brings us to strong rent control where paired with really strong eviction protections and building on the tenant protections that we already have, because we know those two things go hand in hand in being able to keep people in their homes. It goes to talking about decommodifying land and decommodifying property, right? And creative ownership models through tenant opportunity to purchase and converting buildings into cooperative housing and community and commercial land trusts. Just doing everything we absolutely can to keep people in their homes and to keep poor and working class people specifically in our city.
So there's something that happens in the rent control debate where market urbanist types will say, no, just build more housing. Rent control doesn't work. Let's not do that. Just build more housing. We have our magic bullet. Just do that. And it's not as simple as that. And also it can feel like on the left, it's people get very attached to the one thing they can do. Maybe it's rent control, maybe it's something else. And they say, let's put the developers out of business, no more market rate housing, and hope hope that our magic bullet works. So can you talk about how, I don't know, I feel like I've arrived at the end here and it's more of a statement than a question. So I don't know if there's something you can hang on to and respond to from what I said. Maybe.
Yeah, I see the sentiment of where you're going, right? And I think it's that like there is no one solution to a crisis that is so complex. If there was, we would have already done it and we would have no problem, right? Like ultimately the problem is that like when housing is something that is not guaranteed as a human right and is something that is bought and sold for profit, like that someone can make money off of, like this is the end result. That like some people have to go without so that a very small group of people can have a lot. And like the things that we are talking about, right? Like market interventions through zoning reforms, through increasing development, and then like structural solutions, also like structural reforms and solutions like rent control, like tenant protections. Those are all things that we're doing to like try to like bear hug the problem, you know? And it's like all of those things will only do so much. And like, we just have to do as many of them as we can while keeping an eye towards like who is experiencing this crisis the most severely and what are we doing to react to that, right? So like we know public housing residents experience this crisis the most severely. So what are we doing to protect public housing from becoming privatized? What are we doing to also make sure that people who live in public housing also have like dignified homes? That like we are finding new and creative ways to like do the upkeep on them so that we aren't like beholden to like RAD and Section 18 loopholes as like the only way of being able to do upkeep effectively, also privatizing public housing, you know? And I don't know if that was also a very coherent response to like what you were saying, but like I like,
congratulations.
Yeah, I agree. I feel you, you know, like for me, it's like, how do we protect like poor and working class people?
So here's a curveball. What, assuming you get elected, what committee would you want to serve on? Do you know?
What committee do I want? I I'm not sure. I think I would want to like do most labor stuff. I would want to find a way to do that. Yeah, I'm not sure what committees I would want to be a part of. I would actually like, I think for me, I would want to like go through that process of figuring that out in um, like through a community process, you know, like I would like, assuming I win, right? Like I would want to think about doing, like, uh, like a, like a Ward 10 like multiple rounds of like agenda setting and like how are we going to use this time and how are we bringing in like movement partners and stuff like that to help us like facilitate those conversations with residents. And then, you know, I think like the way to like move through the amount of like frustration and mistrust people have is through like a very aggressive community centered process on everything.
It's also a little complicated because the committee structure at the city council has been thrown into disarray through the coronavirus. So I think right now it would probably go through the policy committee. It's kind of a catch-all for everything that's not zoning or transportation. So thinking about labor, what's a big, I don't, you may not have an answer to this because it's so far into the future, but what's a big idea for an ordinance or some kind of policy in the area of labor that you'd want to pursue?
Yeah. So like fair scheduling, fair work week work is really like strong. It also serves like Ward 10 very specifically, just because we have like a lot of service industry workers who both work and live in Ward 10. And it's something that folks who, it's something that like HERE and restaurant organizing center and like other like lefty labor people who do work at the city have been organizing around. And then like, I think the like coolest opportunities we have are around what we do on wage theft enforcement through, and like, we have really strong wage theft laws in our state. Most of that is like enforced then through our city, and for me, it's like the like long-term vision for wage theft enforcement is also like the place where we do a lot of like workplace protection stuff. So like, how can we expand its work to also address like meaningfully and in a timely way, like address like other forms of workplace violence, like sexual harassment and assault, and other forms of workplace retaliation for like engaging in union stuff and things like that, through like really strengthening wage theft enforcement. So it's like a way to build on some really strong work that happened through state action.
Can I do a fun question?
Yes.
Okay. I just thought of it now. It's not on the script,
I'm
Jason.
scared,
It's a
but yes.
curveball. So Ward 10 has, is it 5 candidates, 6 candidates right now? Is that what is the number? 6?
If you're going to ask me to talk trash about any one of them, I'm saying
it's the opposite. It's going to be the opposite. Is it 5 or 6 candidates?
There's 6 of us total, so there's 5 aside from me.
Well, can you say a nice thing about each of them? You don't have to, but I thought it would be hilarious to make you do this.
Yes, I can.
Okay. Even David Wheeler?
Yes, I can. You know, I used to work in childcare. I can say something nice about every person on this planet.
Okay. We'll give you about 5 seconds to warm up, and then you go.
Something nice about each of them. So,
should I list them? Would it be more dramatic if I list them and like you respond? I'll go David Wheeler.
Oh my God. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do it. Okay.
David Wheeler.
I like that in our first conversation, his way of connecting with me was talking about the time that he spent in India.
Oh.
I'm not Indian.
Well, I don't know if that's a nice thing to say about David Wheeler.
That's a really nice thing. We connected about it. It was great. We learned a lot about geography with one another that day.
I like the way you play this game. Chris Parsons.
I like that he's a labor person.
Okay. Alicia Gibson.
I like that she's a woman of color.
Okay. Katie Jones.
I love the polka dots.
And is it Uba Noor? Is that the...
Mm-hmm. I like that she's also Muslim.
Okay. Did we get through them all? I'm not sure. Did I miss one?
That we did. Yeah. We took the longest on David Wheeler.
Okay. That was intentional. Okay. That was my fun question. I enjoyed it.
That was your fun question.
Jason, do you have a fun question?
Yeah. So one of the things that you brought up, regarding some labor issues, it was about people who work in the service industry. Your community, soon to be my community again, is blessed with many, many delightful restaurants and bars and places like that. When you have the chance to just kind of have some time to yourself or with your friends and go out and do something, what are some places you like to go to?
I will start with a joke. The other day, I don't get done with campaign stuff until like 9:30, sometimes later each night. And I it's harder and harder to find places that are open after that. And I made this joke the other day. I was like, Minneapolis is the new St. Paul, and St. Paul is the new Mankato.
Yeah.
Because I'm from Mankato and nothing's open after 7 p.m. there. And um, I love spending time at Harry Singh's. It's just down the street from me. I can walk there regardless of the temperature it is outside. I usually go when on days it snows. He's really sweet. I love talking to him and hanging out with him. He like tells me about his like life and his kids and stuff. And I hope he stays there forever. I spend a lot of time at I spent a lot of time at like Nightingale. I spent a lot of time at I used to do all of my coffees from Common Roots for a long time. I obviously adore Pimento. I've done a lot of my like organizing and activism in this community and over this last year through there. I like the pho place on 25th and Nicollet. That's like my like New Year's and New Year Day place. Yeah, we actually have like a lot of really nice spots like all over, hidden gems. I my new office is near Canteen. That's like my new favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, let's get into transportation. One of the reasons I live in where I pick my neighborhood is because I don't own a car. I'm walking places. I like living near a bunch of grocery stores. I'm biking places. I'm taking the bus. I depend on these things, and I take it personally. Like I want to feel safe doing these things, and so when thinking about streets like Lindale, which is a county road, and Hennepin Avenue, which is a city street coming up for reconstruction sometime soon, what do you say to people like me? Get me to trust you. You're going to keep me safe. Uh, what do we do about these streets? These terrible, no good streets like Lindale and Hennepin Avenue.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a lot of work that people like you have done um, on the like Lindale conversion, and it like that's been like a like what we've known Lindale's unsafe for how many years now? It's just like something that we have like gotten a lot of progress on in this last year, and that's really like good and exciting. And I think the thing we like the experience we have in common there is on process at least is like the importance of like public pressure, direct action in building for like a changing system. And that's like something I can deeply identify with. That's like what I really love about that movement. And like, I think that really matters. And, I am a person that owns a car. I do drive from place to place. And my like primary method of getting from place to place in Minneapolis is by walking. And Lindale and Hennepin are really unsafe for me too, and a part of building healthy streets, right? That include like protected bike paths, that include like protected spaces for public transit users, are like part of how we like make it safer for pedestrians and people who like aren't using that infrastructure per se to like also be safe. And street safety is a part of how we build broader public safety. And like, I mean, I think I would hope that you can trust me to like see how those systems are all tied together, and that's a strong starting place.
Jason, do we trust her? What do you think?
I think so. As somebody who a long time ago lived on Hennepin Avenue in South Minneapolis,
You're
and
coming
is
back,
going to be
right?
living on. I am, yeah. Back when I first moved to the Wedge many years ago, the terrible point that I always remember was people trying to turn left at Franklin on Hennepin. And, for as terrible as that is now, I can assure you that 15 years ago it was far, far worse. So, looking at how, the plans for Hennepin in the future are coming up, you know, the big question is always, well, you know, how are the business owners going to be impacted? And it feels like giving people that extra status because they have the capital to own a business is a really strange way to look at it, rather than saying how are the citizens that are the ones who get hurt the most in these instances happening, being taken care of. And, you know, obviously there's the conflict between capital and labor and capital and the community. But when you look forward at what Hennepin Avenue will look like in the future, what do you see there?
Yeah, I want to live on a Hennepin Avenue where I would feel very safe, like walking with my brother there. And I don't feel that way right now. And I think a lot of people describe that as their experience. And I agree. It is like a very odd way of looking at someone saying like, I'm really scared that I'm going to get run over by a car, and turning around and being like, what are we going to do about this business over here? And like, that's a very strange way to place value on the lives of people in our community, and not something that we're that's like not actually like a way of looking at things that we're unfamiliar with, right? Like that's how we talk about public safety in our city too, right? We say, oh, like that's just the cost of doing business. And like two, we also know that like increased foot traffic is good for business. Like it's just true. And like there's been plenty of work that's been done before me, and will continue for years to come, that like proves that very point. You know, like people walking around and safely being able to do so is really, really good for business, and it like more than makes up for losing 2 parking spots. You know, like it's just true.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I want to live on a street where like I can walk around. I want to live on a street where I can like see my neighbors, and where like places that facilitate like community building and imagination and like trust building between people who live there. Something that serves like the actual like residents that live there, and not some illusion we have about the monetary value.
Yeah, places where people want to spend time, places that people enjoy.
Yeah, places where people want to spend time. They're good for the community, actually. They're good for public safety, actually.
It's good for everyone, even businesses. Don't be afraid, businesses. So, can you believe that the 2017 election, one of the big issues then was the 26th and 28th Street bike lanes? Do you remember that?
I can. Actually, I did work that election cycle.
It's like the people were holding Nazi lane signs. People got very worked up.
Do you remember that? So I used to live on 26th, and I lived on 26th during that election cycle. And it was, so I lived on 26th in Pillsbury, and I used to park on 26th when I would come home from work. And then I lost my park. I was like one of the people that was personally victimized by that, right? Like I lost my parking spot, and I was like, I was fine. It was literally okay. You know, like
pick up a sign.
The world did not end. I did indeed like make it home every day, you know, and like I just remember like the very dramatic reaction that came from that. And I just like the Nazi lanes thing started as a joke, and then it was like serious, you know?
Yeah, somebody put a bunch of joke signs up and set up a fake event, and then people showed up and seriously held them. It was so weird.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
The aftermath of that turned out okay. Like the ambulances, one of the lines was ambulances won't be able to get to the hospital. Well, they can just take this very luxurious bike lane all the way to the hospital if they want. And it's much nicer crossing the street. It's much safer not having, at least in the wedge part of it. It's a single lane instead of 2. It's much nicer crossing the street. I think it's been good. I think even people who are upset might admit, if they're being honest, that it's been a nice change.
Yeah.
It's just my remembrance of 2017. Jason, if you have nothing else, I'm ready to go to the recommendation segment. Are you ready?
What's the recommendation?
I am excited for this segment with Aisha.
Okay, don't worry. It's not going to be anything bad.
You're going to ask me to say something nice about David.
You're showing that you don't actually listen to the podcast by not being familiar with the recommendations.
It isn't. hour long. Can you blame me?
You don't want to listen to 90 minutes with John O'Cogill?
When it's out, I will listen.
Say something nice
I'll
about
send you notes.
say something nice about John O'Cogill. Quick, go.
He's got nice hair.
True. Okay. So this has been a terrible last 15 months in a lot of ways. Very stressful. You're running for office. That's not a fun thing to do in a lot of ways, though I'm sure you're enjoying some aspects. So what do you do to relax? Maybe a walk in the park, a place that you enjoy, a book, a movie, a game, something that's making you happy. Three things that are making you happy. We want 3 things because people want to know what they can be doing in their lives to make them happier.
Things that make me happy. I walk to my corner store and chat with my corner store guy for a little while and get myself a tea almost every other day. What else do I do for happiness? I
You just live a
This
very
is where we are in
sad life. That's the truth here. You just live a very
I
sad
live a
life.
very full life. Thank you very much.
This is where we're at in 2021, that it's easier to say nice things about David Wheeler than it is to list things that make you happy.
Yeah.
What else do I do? I've been my brother learned how to text. He's 10, so he'd like learned how to text recently. And he's like doing it more frequently in his day-to-day life. And so like throughout the day he'll like send me like silly things that are happening in his like day or in his life, and that's like really sweet. That brings me a lot of joy. I don't know. I'm like oh my god, how could I forget? We're in September. It's fall. It's turtleneck season. I'm like I like have been finding new turtlenecks to buy to manage my stress.
Okay. You're the first person to say turtlenecks.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Some people are not living very joyful lives. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're at the end, Jason. You got anything else?
I guess one question that I had kind of on the back burner is, obviously you've worked with candidates like Ilhan Omar. The Twin Cities lately have been fortunate enough to have a lot of really great women and women of color who are running for office. Are there any specific people that you look at and say like that's somebody that inspired me, or people that you're just like, yeah, this is somebody that I can talk to when things are difficult, and that when I'm in office, this person will have my back?
Yeah, I mean, I will say most of the folks that I feel that way about are not elected. They're just like people who live in Ward 10 or like in South Minneapolis in general that will be like, I just like really hate people who run for office, but I guess I don't hate you. But like, I do often get asked like, you're like, I just turned 24. I'm, like have spent most of this election being 23. And like folks will like often, ask me questions about like why I believe I could run at this age. And like, I'll talk about Nelsie Yang a lot in that. She was 23 when she ran, 24 when she got elected. And she's been an excellent council member. And, when I, started thinking about running and then, over the course of the campaign, like she reaches out very consistently. And has been somebody who I like talk with about that experience, specifically being, a woman of color and being, young and running, and there's I'm lucky to not be alone in this experience, and like have a lot of like love and gratitude for the many people who were very alone in like having these identities and going through this experience.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. We're going to end it there. Thank you to my co-host, Jason Garcia, and thank you to our guest, Aisha Chughtai, who's running for Minneapolis City Council. She's going to be on your ballot this November. I'm your host, John Edwards, and this has been the Wedge Live Podcast. Thank you for listening.
This is a real thing. Real thing.
None of you have the balls to stop this. Stop this.
I've got plenty of time. I have nothing else going on today.
We're in the Wedge neighborhood right now.